good afternoon to Principal Ma'am, as well as to the Assistant Headmistress and to all the teachers and to all the children who are gathered here. I know this is a post-lunch session and all of you are probably sleepy, but I'll do my best to wake you up. Okay, so that's my agenda today. I was in Germany, as part of my college education. I'm from IIT, I've gone to Germany and I did my thesis there. As part of this program, we are expected to learn some basic German. So we were in German classes. German is not very easy. It's quite a tough language, although it's a phonetic language. It's not like English, it's a very phonetic language. So in these German classes, we are asked to frame sentences. So in one of these classes, we were given a picture and then we had to frame sentences based on what we see in the picture. This picture was simple. So there's a room, there's a bed, and there's a window. So we did all we could to frame sentences. Each of us wrote some 5-6 sentences. There was only one guy who actually wrote about 10 sentences. So we were wondering, how did he write 10? Because there's hardly anything in that picture. How did he write 10 sentences? So we tried to peep in to see if this guy's picture was any different from ours. But it wasn't, it was the same picture. And then we asked, he's reading out the sentences to the teacher. One of the sentences was, the cat is behind the bed. So we are like, where's the cat? We don't see any cat. So this guy says, you can't see it because it's behind the bed. So, let me come to another story. This story is told by Mahatriya Ram. I think his name is Rangarajan, a pretty famous person who gives a lot of motivational talks and talks which, make you look into your soul. At a shop, there's a kid who picks up a 10 rupee note and gives it back to the shopkeeper. It was lying there, so this kid picks it up and gives it to the shopkeeper. The shopkeeper is very impressed with the child's honesty. So what he does is, he says he gives him a bowl of chocolates and says, you pick up as much as you want. He's a little kid, 5 years old maybe. So this child is like, no uncle, you give me. He says, no, you take as much as you want. You've been honest. I want to, appreciate you. So it's your choice. You take as much as you want. The child is still like, no uncle, you give me. Then, the shopkeeper looks at the mother and says, why don't you, ask him to take the chocolates? So the mother's like, come on, take it. He's asking you to take. Why don't you take as much as you want? The kid is like, no, you only give it. Okay, so finally the shopkeeper says, you're a very unique person. I really like your discipline and everything. And then he picks chocolates and he gives it to this boy. The boy takes it like this. The minute he's out of the shop, the mother is curious. Okay, what do our moms want us to be? They want us to be smart. Although they want us to be honest, they don't want us to be dumb, right? So the mother asks this little fellow, why did you say like that? When he was saying you can take as much as you want, why didn't you take? Why did you keep saying, uncle, you give? So then this little fellow says, Ma, his hands are big. My hands are small. If I take, I can take only 10 chocolates. Because his hands are big, see how much chocolates I got. I have another story. This mom asked this kid to draw a tree and, just wanted to engage him, draw a tree and color it. 5 minutes later, she comes back and she sees this boy has drawn a tree, okay, and the trunk of the tree is actually purple in color and the leaves are orange in color. What would you normally do? You will color it brown, the trunk brown, and you will have green leaves on top. So she asks her son, why is it purple? What you have done is wrong. I mean, like, why is it orange? Why is it purple? Then the boy says, in my world, it is purple. In my world, it is orange. And then she understood that this boy had actually opened the door for her into his world, his imaginative world. Why did I tell you these stories? Just coming back to what is creativity. Picasso. Have you heard of Picasso? Is he there in any of your lessons? Have you? Yeah, he's a great artist. Okay, and there is this famous quote by him which says, every child is an artist. The problem is how to remain an artist as we grow up. What happens is, as we grow up, with societal pressures, with academic pressures, you have to study maths, you have to study chemistry, you have to study science, with all these kinds of pressures, and we join the herd mentality. We slowly unlearn whatever was the creative genius which was within us. So what is creativity? If I ask you, creativity is the art of creating something. Creativity is innovation. There are a million definitions of creativity. But let's come to the context of why we are here today. Let's define creativity based on being a writer. What is creativity for an author? Like, how does someone become a very famous author? There are three things. If you look at the lives of famous authors, there are three things which have shaped them. The first of it is experiences, the second of it is reading, and the third is language. Now, what do I mean by experiences? Take Charles Dickens. He was working in a factory at the tender age of 12. Instead of being in school, he was working in a factory. And the suffering that he witnessed and he experienced led to Oliver Twist and David Copperfield. If you haven't read these books, I suggest you pick them up. Take J.K. Rowling. J.K. Rowling was used to telling stories to her sister, which is how the Harry Potter series came about. Take Lewis Carroll. He was used to, making up nonsensical characters to entertain children, which is how Alice in Wonderland came about. How did these people become famous authors? Their experiences changed them. Now, what about us? What about our experiences? Today, we are not creating as much as we should. You know why? Can someone tell me why? Any answers? Okay, I'll answer it for you. The reason is that instead of creating, we are a generation of consumers. We only consume data. We only consume what we see. We only read. We only watch on Instagram. What do we do when we go to a beach? Isn't it a beautiful experience to actually stand there, wet your feet when you're just in front of nature, the waves, the wind, the sand, and what do? We are busy shooting reels because we want to share it with our friends. Instead of experiencing the beauty of nature, we are busy trying to boast about it to someone else. So we are losing sight of the experience itself. What do? The sound of a train is so, you can attach an emotion to it. What are we doing? We're clicking selfies. We were at the book fair recently. You won't believe the number of people who came to the book fair only to upload reels, not to buy books. We are losing out. It's not something which you are at fault of. That's something even I'm at fault of. My son is a singer. Okay, and I go for his stage performances at Ratman's College. And what am I doing? I'm busy shooting videos of him. End of the song, I've forgotten how he performed. I have to watch the video to understand. Experiences are important. How do you fill yourself with experiences? What you require is nature. How many of you actually, go to your terrace and look at the stars? for some time without a phone in hand, without someone screaming in your ears, without, having something running through your mind like chatting something on WhatsApp. How many of you spend some time just sitting on a park bench with nothing around you? No music, nothing, just listening to the sounds of nature. How many of you actually sit down calmly in a room and probably write something which happened the previous day? Or forget even writing, how many of you spend time to just think with nothing else, distracting you? That is the problem that we have today. We are filling ourselves with so much of media that we do not have time to create. So it is time we took that step back. We moved out of the chaos and, spend 10 minutes a day just for yourself, just for being silent, just for listening to the sounds of, I won't even say sounds of nature. Sometimes the road sounds, even there is a rhythm to it. The horns, the early morning horns, the horns of the autos, the horns of, buses, there is a difference. There is a rhythm to it. And if you listen to it, there is something that you will experience at that moment. So that's the first thing that I cover. The second thing is reading. You will ask me or you will tell me, reading is so boring. Let me watch the same book as a movie. It's far, simpler, right? In 2.5 hours, the movie is over. I've read the whole book. So why should I sit and, waste my time, put effort to actually read? Let's take an example. You're reading in a book, you're reading a sentence. It starts like this: a dark, deep forest. When I say it, he has a different picture of it. She has a different picture of it. Ma'am has a different picture of it. That sir has a different picture of it. That is the magic of reading. Reading forces your mind to create pictures. What happens if you see a movie, dark, deep forest? You will see only what you see in the movie. There's no room for imagination. If they're showing a dark forest like in some movie, you see only that. Where is the room for creativity there? But when you read, the images that you form in your mind are what help you become creators in the future, which is why reading is very important. The second important thing of why reading is important is it helps you connect ideas. If you look at, phones today, you've got this swipe, right, to open the phone. You've got this touch screens. You've got so many features on the phones, so many features which are there in different types of smartphones. How did they come about? It came about not just because of innovation. The first touchscreen phones were invented by Apple and they came about in iPhones. Today it's available in all the phones. But do you think the owner of Apple, Steve Jobs, invented the technology? He didn't. He just connected a technology which someone else invented to the phones. Reading helps you connect ideas. You can read science, you can create science fiction. You can read history, you can create historical fiction. You can solve problems based on what you have read. You can create new solutions which no one else has thought about. That is why reading is important. The third important thing about reading is that it helps you develop your language. So let me come back to the three things which I was talking about. What will help you become a good author, a best-selling author? The first is experiences. I've told you how you can gain experiences. The second is reading. The third is language and expression. We need to develop the language to express. You may have 1,000 things running in your mind, but you should be able to put it in paper. Be it in Tamil, be it in Hindi, be it in English. It doesn't matter. You cannot, just what you talk cannot become a book. There needs to be something more. You need to learn the language to actually express well. So how do you actually develop the language? How do you develop this written form of expression? There is a proverb in Tamil, a couple of proverbs actually. Pada Pada Ragam, Neram Telugu, something like that, okay? Pada Pada Ragam is very popular, which means that the more you actually sing, the better you are as a singer. The same holds good for writing as well. Chittiramum Kai Pazhakam, Sendamilum Na Pazhakam. How? The more you speak, the more you actually draw. You can be a great artist, but how do you become the greatest artist? It's only by practice. So the more you practice writing, the more you practice your language, the more eloquent you become in expression of that language. So how can you do it? Ma'am, what can I write? You can start journaling. You can write, whatever happened today, the small things which happened. You can make it a habit that every day for about 5 minutes, you can sit down and, write whatever happened on that day. You can imagine things. You can write one-page stories. Once upon a time, there was this kid who did this. And this is what happened to the kid. It could be imaginary stories. It could be stories about yourself. You've seen something on your way to school. You experienced something in school. You felt something which you could not tell your friends today in school. You can write them up. The more you write, the better you get at it. Let me come to the next aspect, which is how can schools improve creativity? How can schools help these kids develop writing skills and creative writing skills? One of the things is, which we are all blamed, the Indian education system is blamed for, is what is called as rote learning. I'll give you an example. When my son was, I think, in 6th or 7th standard, we were studying what is magnetism. Okay, magnetism is a force of blah, blah, blah. Just then, my niece sends a video from Australia. She studies in Australia. She has to demonstrate magnetism to her class. So what is she doing? She's holding 2 magnets and she's saying, this is the North Pole, this is South Pole. What happens when the North Pole comes close to the South Pole? What I'm trying to tell schools and to teachers is that what we need to give the children is the concepts. And on the other side, the language. Let them put it together in whatever words they want to. This is the only way that we are going to move from learning definitions without understanding what the definitions are all about. We should consciously move from rote learning into learning the concept. Let them put it in their own words. Help them, encourage them to put it in their own words, which will again help them in their confidence as well as in building their language. The other thing which I want to mention to teachers is to encourage reasoning. We do this spoken English classes we are doing for Sunshine Academy in Metanagar. So one of my trainers goes to this school and she takes we have from grade 1 to grade 8. We are taking classes. There's a class 4 kid who's a very problematic kid. Why? Because he questions everything that is told to him. So she's teaching countable and uncountable nouns. And he's asking, why is rice uncountable? I can count it. So she came back to me, she said, ma'am, how do I handle this kid? He's always questioning things. He's always, whatever I say, he's like cross-questioning me. How do I handle this kid? So I told her, the next day, take a bowl of rice. Take a bowl of rice and give it to him and ask him to count. So the entire class, while she was telling stories, she was singing songs and, enjoying with the rest of the kids, this guy was counting the rice. 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally he said, ma'am, I agree, rice is uncountable. This is what I mean by encourage reasoning. So when they ask you questions, or even when they don't ask you questions, encourage them to question it. Even if it is, grammar is just rules, end of the day. Except there are, some things which are exceptions to the rule. Even in grammar, they've got doubts. And they ought to have doubts. They ought to have questions like this boy did in Sunshine Academy. So encourage reasoning. If you're teaching them something about the solar system, encourage them to ask questions about it. Encourage them to, because when you critically think anything, it automatically will lead to creative problem solving. And this is the correct path to creativity. I've come to the end of the speech, fortunately for you. I'm just mentioning some of the books which have an authors who have changed the course of history. You've all heard of Hitler? Yes? Okay, so he became popular first with his book called Mein Kampf. The book became popular because his entire, the Nazi ideology was spelled out in this book. And it was through this book that he actually hypnotized the entire country against the Jews. Karl Marx. Have you heard of Karl Marx? His Communist Manifesto was the first ideology of communism, and it spread all through Russia, and the countries which are communist today, China, for example. But it started with a book. At least these are non-fiction books. Fiction is imaginary, right? Let me tell you some fictional books, which have changed the course of history. I don't know if you've heard of George Orwell and his book, The Animal Farm. I would if you are 6, 7, 8, you should read about it, because you're also reading about industrialization in your history and in your other subjects. So I suggest you pick up this book, because he details what authoritarianism is all about through his story. He mocks, but then he leaves a message, a strong message inside you. I don't know if you've heard of Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird. It's one of my all-time favorite books. And why am I asking you to read this? See, there are certain things in the book which I read when I was your age and I didn't understand, but they make sense to me now. But the book leaves an impact on you, leaves an impression on you, especially on what women were expected to do in the past and what women are doing now. And there is so much about black and white, how the blacks were not given enough rights, etc. So definitely pick this up if you do have the time for it. Uncle Tom's Cabin. This book was the first book which touched upon slavery. And Abraham Lincoln took up slavery as one of his, causes for his movement, and the reason was this book. The Jungle. This book by Upton Sinclair. It led to the Pure Food and Drug Act in the US. Again, this is a fictional book, but it, opened the eyes of the general public about the unhygienic practices of meat packing. So books can actually change the world, and through books, you can change the world. If there is something you wish to change, if there's something you wish were different, you can write about it and create an impact which will actually change the world in the end. Last, I just want to, in a world where, extracurricular activities mean music or a dance or yoga, not many schools focus on creative writing or on making their kids authors. So a big congratulations to the English department and to the principal of SBOA for even conceiving this program as a budding authors program with the aim of getting you guys to actually read and write and change the world. Thank you very much for the opportunity. We have our books, in the stall outside. Do check out the books. We launched I'm an Author for debut authors as well as for our own books. And it so happened that I asked my niece to write a book, and I published this book. Okay, like she used to write whenever she comes to India from Australia, she used to write these stories during holidays. So I literally begged her, can you please send a story? Can you please send a story? And finally she sent me a story, which is what I published as The Small Green Dog. And you won't believe it. The minute we published it, so many parents connected with me and said, my child writes, can be published. My child writes, can be published. As on date, we've published individual books of more than 50 child authors and anthologies of almost 300 child authors. So, authors, turning children into authors has almost become our USP, And we are proud to be doing this, and we'll continue doing this for as long as we can. Thank you so much for the opportunity.